Hi everyone, welcome to part 2 of my sweater tutorial. If you see any weird transitions in any of these 3 parts, it's because I didn't plan for 3 separate videos, but in this video we are going to be focusing on the upper part of our sweater and working on the collar as well. So let's go ahead and get started. Okay, so for the neck, what I usually do is I'll fold my top in half. So I just make sure the ends are even. So you can see it's folded in half like this, and then you see where it's folded at the top right here. So in this middle section, this is where we're going to create the neck. Now that we have our top folded in half, I'll try to explain the neck portion as best as I can. We will need our 2 stitch markers and our tape measure. Okay, so first off, I already know where I'm going to place my stitch markers, and I did place it 5 inches apart away from each other. Okay, so here's my other top. And you can see that the neck goes outwards. So what I mean about the 5 inches is, hold on, let me grab my tape measure. So about right here, it's 5 inches apart. And then what we're going to do is we're going to start decreasing, and this blue is going to go upwards. So you can see it's, even though we're placing it 5, it's going to go out wider, but you also have to account for this rib part right here. So you want to think about how thick you plan to make it if you're doing the same exact number I am. Sorry, I had to look at my paper really quick, but I did chain 6 for this rib part right here, which means that it's going to be 5 because, again, you go into your chain. So on this, I did make another top before this, and it was a gray one. I did place it about 9 inches apart, and girl, let me tell you, that thing is way too wide. It's basically an off-the-shoulder top. So again, you know, if you mess up, you can always fix it or just make another top, because the off-the-shoulder still looked really cute. It's just that it was way too long. So definitely recommend something between 5 to 7 inches. Okay, so here's how I originally did it. I placed it 6 inches apart, so basically 3 inches on one side. Again, I said I did 5, but I'll show you how I adjusted it. So here's 3 inches apart, and then wherever that 3 is, I'm just going to take my stitch marker and place it into that stitch. So, and then if I measure this here, it's going to be 6 inches apart. Now, as I mentioned earlier, I did have 5 for my neck, so I have to adjust it, but I'm just showing you 6 because it's easier to show on each side. But also what you have to think about is you need to have the same number of stitches on each side. So right here, this middle part, we're not going to be crocheting into this just yet. All we're working on is this side. So this is going to be one side, and then this is the other side. So I have, let's count this. So you want to count your stitches and make sure it's the same number on each side, and how I'm going to count it is basically these little posts right here. So this is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24. So if I have 24 on this side, I should also have 24 on this side. And if it's not the same, you just want to adjust it to have the same number. Okay, so if you had to adjust your stitch marker, you should now measure the middle part just to see where you're at. Remember, I'm just adjusting mine to do 5 inches because of my other top that's already done. So if I measure it here, you can see that it's 5 inches apart. So another thing I should have mentioned earlier, but technically you can still finish it. You should be on your right side. Well, I'm right-handed, so I'm going to be on my right side, and we're going to be working this way. It doesn't matter which side you end off with, but I feel like it's easier personally for me because I work from right and then going to left. But now that we have our stitch markers placed apart, we're going to start doing one side of our shoulder, and we're going to be doing our decreases. Okay, so I'm going to be working on this side first. I'm just going to leave my stitch marker right there. So let me just fold my top so I can get it on camera. And let's start doing our double crochets. So first, you're going to start at your corner, and it's going to be the same thing basically. At the end, you're going to chain 2. Oops, that goes 1 and 2. Then you're going to turn your work. So now I'm at the front, and then we're going to double crochet this whole thing until we get to the end. So at the end you want to save 2 stitches, so this stitch marker plus the stitch before it, so we're going to do our decrease. So now we're just going to double crochet, and let's just double crochet until we get to our last 2 stitches so we can decrease. Okay, so now that I made it to the end, I have my 2 stitches left, so I'm going to do my decrease with a double crochet. So let's first start off by yarning over our hook. Let's go into the stitch, pull some of this yarn through. We have our 3 loops on the hook. Let's yarn over, pull through the first 2. You have 2 loops left on the hook, so now let's yarn over. And this time insert it into the next stitch, which is where your stitch marker is. Just go in, grab some of this yarn. We have 4 loops on the hook. Let's yarn over, pull through the first 2. And then you have 3 loops left, so now let's yarn over and pull through the last 3, and that is your decrease with a double crochet. Okay, so that was row 1. Now moving on to row 2, we're going to start off by chaining 2. So let's go for 1, yarn over for 2, and then we have to turn our work. So now I'm on the back side, and then we're going to start off with a decrease. Okay, so when we're on this back side, when we turn our work, we're still not going into this corner stitch right here, so go into this next one. So remember, not the corner, this one right here. So I'm going to yarn over, go into my next stitch, grab some of this yarn and pull it through. We have 3 loops on the hook. Let's yarn over, pull through the first 2 loops. And then now we're going to, sorry, let me grab my yarn. We're going to yarn over again, but this time go into our next stitch. So this one here, going into that one, pulling my yarn through. We have 4 loops on the hook. Let's yarn over, pull through the first 2. Then we have 3 loops left, so let's yarn over and pull through all 3. And that is our decrease. So now I'm just going to finish double crocheting the rest of this row. So after you do that, we're going to be, well, this whole thing, this whole shoulder part is going to be a decreasing row, but you're only decreasing on the inside right here. So now I'm just going to double crochet the rest of this, and then I'll be back to show you row 3. Okay, so I'm towards the end of row 2. I just want to show you this end part. Remember, go into your chain stitch. So going into that chain to do my last double crochet. And now moving on to row 3, what you're going to do is start off by chaining 2, 1, 2. Then you want to turn your work. And now we're back to this side, and you're going to do the same thing. Just double crochet until you get to the last 2 stitches. Remember, a chain is a stitch for when I do my pattern, so save your chain spot and then the stitch before it. So let me just start double crocheting until I get to that side, and then I'll be right back. So just double crochet until you have 2 stitches left. I made it to the end of row 3, and I'm going to do my decrease, but I want to explain something really quick in case you're confused on what stitch to crochet into. So remember, we're always going into that chain spot. So I'm going into this chain right here plus that stitch. Now, if you're confused on what to go into, I'll try to explain this as best as I can. So remember how we started off, we placed our 2 stitch markers, and for me personally, I had 26 on this side, and I now have 26 on this side to make it even. So then what I did is for row 1, we double crocheted until we got to this corner and we decrease. So that means 26, and then a decrease means I'd have 25 in that first row. And then when we moved on to row 2, we decreased and then double crocheted all the way to this side, which means to subtract again, and now I have 24. So when I go on to row 3, I have my double crochets here, and I'll decrease again. So that means I'm going to have 23. So because I have 24 in row 2, that means I should count this. So I'm counting this chain right here. This is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22. Remember I said have 24. So this is 23 and 24. So that's how you count it. So I hope that made sense, but basically I have 24 in row 2, so that's how I'll figure out what my last 2 stitches are. So whatever number you have, you just have to keep subtracting it, because each row we're doing, we're just subtracting 1. I really hope that made sense, but yeah. So basically, whatever you have from the previous row, just you can count it and then just make sure you have 2 stitches left to do your decrease. So what I'm going to do here is now do my decrease with a double crochet. So I'll show that again. You're going to yarn over your hook, you're going into your next stitch, your last 2 stitches, and then you're going to pull some yarn through. We have 3 loops on the hook, so yarn over, pull through the first 2. You have 2 loops left, but now you have to yarn over. You go into your chain stitch, grab this yarn and pull it through, then yarn over, pull through the first 2. You have 3 loops left, yarn over, and pull through the last 3. And that's the end of row 3. So we're going to do this for about 3 more rows, but if you're confused, actually I'll remove the stitch marker to show you how we can keep track of it, but now we have to just subtract another number. So now that I'm on this row, I should have 23 stitches left. And that's because I just did a decrease. So now what I'm going to do is chain 2. So we're doing row 4 right now. And then we're going to turn our work. And then we're going to start off with a decrease. So remember, don't go into this corner spot right here. You're going into this next one. So let's yarn over, go through the next stitch, pull the yarn through. We have 3 loops on the hook, yarn over, pull through the first 2. We have 2 loops left, yarn over again, go into your next stitch, grab that yarn through. We have 4 loops on the hook, yarn over, pull through the first 2. We have 3 loops left, yarn over, and pull through the last 3. Okay, so if you're confused on the stitches, we just did a decrease right there, but we also did that chain. And remember, I said the chain always counts. So what we can do is just take our stitch marker and place it into this chain so we know where we're going to decrease at the end. In case you're confused, you don't have to do that if you can count it, but I'm just going to put that in there in case anybody wants to just put a stitch marker. Remember, insert it into the chain and not that decrease we just did. So here's the decrease stitch, and that's the chain. And so now what you're going to do is just double crochet the rest of this row, and then I'll be back for the next one, row 5. Okay, so now moving on to row 5, we're doing the same thing by starting off with chaining 2 at the corner, turning our work, and we're just going to do a double crochet as usual until you have 2 stitches left, because at the end you will do your decrease. So I'm just going to double crochet this until I get to my stitch marker plus this stitch right here where I'm going to do my decrease. So I'll be back once I reach the end. Towards the end of row 5, and I have my 2 stitches left there where the stitch marker is, plus this guy right here. So let's do our decrease with the double crochet. So I just yarned over my hook, going into that stitch, pulling this yarn through. We have our 3 loops, yarn over, pull through the first 2. I'm just going to leave my stitch marker there for now, and I'll just yarn over, go into the chain, and then pull the yarn through. If you can't go through because the stitch marker, just remove it. But I just went through, so I now have my 4 loops on the hook. I'm yarning over, pulling through the first 2. I have 3 loops left, so I'll yarn over and pull through the last 2, or 3. And then now we're done with row 5. Okay, so this next row is going to be my last row, and we're starting off the same as usual by chaining 2. And then we're going to turn our work. And now we're going to start off with our decrease. So remember, don't go into this corner stitch. You want to go into your next one. And then we're going in, grabbing this yarn, pulling it through. We have 3 loops left, yarn over, pull through the first 2. Now you have 2 loops left, so yarn over, go through your next stitch. Grab that yarn, pull it through. We have 4 loops, so now let's yarn over, pull through the first 2. We have 3 loops left, yarn over, pull through the last 3, and then now you're just going to double crochet the rest of this row. Okay, so now that we're double crocheting, I want to explain something really quick. So for me, because I already measured this against my body, this is where I'm going to stop with my decreasing. But if you feel like you need to decrease a couple more rows or add a couple more rows, you can go ahead and do that. Okay guys, so I'm done with row 6 and this is what it looks like. Now I'm going to end it off here on this side. If you personally feel like you want to do a couple more rows or maybe add just a double crochet row, you can go ahead and do that, but I find this fits perfectly for me. So again, if you want to add any more rows, please go ahead and do that. But if you want to stop here like I did, you can now take some scissors, cut off this yarn, and then you just want to take this yarn piece and insert it into this little loop. Just push it through, pull it, and just tighten it that way. And then if you want to secure it even more, you can take your crochet hook, you can go into a stitch, pull this yarn through, not all the way, just enough to get a loop. You have a loop on your hook, now just take this yarn and pull it through. And that's just one way we can secure it. And then we can leave this yarn here and then we're going to crochet over it later. But now let's work on the next side. For this next side, what we're going to do is we're starting at this stitch marker. I don't want to start on this corner because it's going in the opposite direction, because remember on this side we started from this end here and we went this way. I mean, you could start here if you'd like, but I'm just going to keep it even and continue at where the stitch marker is so we can go in the same direction. So now let's just take our yarn. Let me grab it really quick. I have my yarn here and I'm just going to attach it to where that stitch marker is. So I'm taking my crochet hook, pushing it into that stitch, and I'm just going to take my yarn, pull it through, and then I'm just going to tie a knot, and then we can begin crocheting. You can tie 2 knots if you like, but I'll just do 1 for now. So now that you attach your yarn, let's first take our crochet hook, insert it through the same stitch, and pull this yarn through, and then we're going to chain 2, and this chain does count as a stitch. So now we're going to do a decrease. So into these 2 stitches right here, let's yarn over our hook first, go through the first one, pull the yarn through. We have our 3 loops, so yarn over, pull through the first 2, yarn over, and do the same thing to the next stitch. Pull yarn over and then pull through the first 2. We have 3 loops left, yarn over, pull through all 3. Okay, so I just took my crochet hook out really quick because I just want to show you that this is the decrease we just did and this is the chain. So I'm going to take my stitch marker and I'm going to place it into the chain just so I can keep track at the end instead of counting all the time. And this is the 2 stitches I'll be decreasing into when I go back to the other side. So right now we're working on row 1 of this side. So now that we did our decrease, let's just do a double crochet all the way until we get to the end. So it's just basically repeating what we did on the other side. But this time we just started with a decrease. So I'll be back once I finish double crocheting this row, and then we can move on to row 2. So I just did my last double crochet into that chain. So now moving on to row 2, I have to chain 2, turn my work, and now I'm just going to double crochet until I get to my last 2 stitches here. So at these 2, I'm just going to do the decrease, but for now I have to double crochet until I get there. So I'll be back once I reach the end, and I'll show you how to do the decrease. Okay, so I made it towards the end, so I'm going to do my decrease now. If you need to, you can go ahead and remove your stitch marker, but I think I'm going to leave it in there because I feel like I can make my way through with this hook. So I'm just going to yarn over, go into the second to last stitch, grab that yarn, pull it through, yarn over, pull through the first 2. We have 2 loops left, so yarn over, go into your chain stitch, which is where that stitch marker is. Grab that yarn, pull it through. We have 4 loops on the hook, yarn over, pull through the first 2, yarn over, pull through the last 3. Now we're going to move on to row 3, and for this row we're doing the same thing by starting off with chaining 2, turning your work, and then we're going to start off with a decrease. Remember not to go into the corner stitches, you want to go into this one first, and this is still a double crochet with a decrease, or a decrease with a double crochet. So I just yarn over, and now I have my 2 loops left. I'm yarning over again, going to the next stitch. I have my 4 loops on the hook, so I'm yarning over, pulling through the first 2. I have 3 loops left, yarning over, pulling through the last 3. I'm going to remove this really quick, and I'm also going to remove my stitch marker. And then here's what we just did. We have our decrease stitch and the chain stitch. So in that chain stitch, I'm just going to take my stitch marker and place it in there so I don't have to count, and this will just help me keep track of it. And then now we're just going to decrease the rest of this row. So I'm going to do this part off camera, and then I'll be back to show you row 4. Okay, so I'm at the end of row 3. I'm just going to do my last double crochet into that chain. And then at the end, remember, we always chain 2. So this is 1, 2. Now I'm turning my work, and I'm going to work a double crochet until I have 2 stitches left, which is the stitch marker and the stitch before, and then that's where I'm going to do my decrease. So again, you don't go into those corner stitches, you just go into the next one, and we're just doing a double crochet once again. So I'm going to do this part off camera because I don't want to take up too much storage space. So I'll be back until I get to the decrease, and I will show you that part on camera. I'm now towards the end of row 4, so I'm going to do my decrease. I'm just going to leave my stitch marker there once again because I feel like I can make it through, but if you'd like to remove yours, please go ahead and do so. So now let's do our decrease with our double crochets. So I just yarn over, pull through a loop. Now I have 3 loops on the hook, so I'm yarning over, pulling through the first 2, yarning over again, and doing the same thing into the chain space, pulling my loop through. I have my 3 loops on the hook, so I'm yarning over, pulling through the first 2. I have 3 loops left, yarning over, pulling through the last 3 loops. Sorry, it's really early in the morning. It's like, I think 4 or 5. But yeah, so now let's start off by chaining 2 because we're now going on to row 5. So chain 2, turn your work, and then let's start our decrease. Again, do not go into your chain spot, go into your next stitch. Or that, like, you know, that don't go into that corner stitch, so let's go into the next one. There's our 3 loops, yarning over, pulling through the first 2, yarn over again, go into your next stitch. This is a decrease, remember, so we have our 4 loops, yarning over, pulling through the first 2, 3 loops left on the hook, yarn over, pull through all 3. Oops, I got caught. Okay, there we go. So now I'm just going to remove my hook really quick so I can remove the stitch marker. And then this is the decrease we just did. And then this is the chain spot. So I'm just going to put it into my chain space. And now I'm going to double crochet the rest of this row. So I'm just going to finish double crocheting this, and then we can finally move on to row 6. I made it to the end of row 5. So now at the end we have to chain our 2, turn our work, and we're going to work our way back down to do our decrease. So remember, the same as usual, just do your double crochets until you get to your last 2 stitches, and your last 2 stitches will be that stitch marker and the stitch before. So let me make my way down there, and then I'll be back to show you the decrease and how we're going to end off this side. Alright guys, so finally we're almost done with this side. So let's do our last decrease. So I just yarn over, going into my stitch, pulling some yarn through. We have to yarn over now and pull through the first 2, yarn over again and go into your chain space, and then pull some yarn. Oops, did I go through? Going into your chain space, grabbing that yarn, pulling it through. We have 4 loops on the hook, so yarn over, pull through the first 2, yarn over, pull through the last 3. And now we're done with row 6. What we're going to do next is single crochet this top and go all the way to this side to the bottom, because we just want to create a nice little edge for when we sew it. I know I didn't do that to the other side, but we're going to do that after this. The reason I'm doing it now is because right now I'm currently on the inside of the neck part, so it's easy for me to just do one straight way. And the other one we ended off in the corner, so that's why I'm doing this now. But to do our single crochets, let's just chain 1, so yarn over your hook and pull through, and then let's turn, and then we're just going to single crochet. So you're not going into this corner stitch, you just want to go into the next one. And yeah, so a single crochet is pretty easy. So I'll do, oh sorry, actually did I show you guys a single crochet? Oh yeah, I did in the beginning, but if you forgot, just go through your stitch, grab some yarn, pull it through. There's 2 loops on your hook, yarn over and pull through the 2 loops. So again, just insert your hook, grab some yarn, pull it through, 2 loops on the hook, yarn over, pull through both. So I'm just going to do that until I reach the corner, and I'll show you how to do the corner spot. Okay, so once I make it to the corner, I'm not going to chain anything. I'm just going to single crochet into this chain right here. Like, you know how people will chain 1 or 2? I don't want to do that. I'm just going to go straight into that chain and do a single crochet. And then I have a nice edge on this top part, so I'm going to go into the same stitch and do another single crochet. So basically 2 single crochets into that chain, and then it'll help you curve. So for this part right here, I know these aren't stitches, so it's going to be a little bit hard to figure out where to crochet into, but just crochet enough so it doesn't stretch out your project too much, or it doesn't like tighten it or anything. So I'm just going to go into like any random spot, and I'm just going to single crochet this side so I can make a nice edge. And then for mine, because this is color block, I'm only going up to where the blue ends. I'm not going to single crochet into the gray. If you did do a solid color throughout the whole thing, of course, just got a text message, but you can just go all the way until the end if you have one solid color. If you like to attach a gray yarn and single crochet this part, you can go ahead and do that, but I personally just go up to the blue and then I finish it off because I'm not going to sew the gray part closed. But yeah, so I'm just going to single crochet all the way till I get to the blue, and then I'll be back once I'm done. So remember, just find any spot that fits and just keep single crocheting. Actually, let me show you how it looks currently. So this is what it currently looks like. You can see it's a nice edge instead of having this little border right here. So I'll just finish crocheting this and then I'll be right back. Okay, so once you make it to the end right here, you can just take your scissors, cut the yarn off, and then you're just going to tie a knot. Oh, sorry, not tie a knot, but you're going to take this yarn and put it through the loop, and then that creates the knot. And then you can secure it a bit more if you just take your crochet hook, insert it into a stitch, grab this yarn, pull it through, but don't pull all the way, just enough until you have a loop on the hook, yarn over, and just pull that through. You can do that as many times as you like, but I'm just going to do 2 for now, and then now we can attach the other side. Also, at this point, we can remove our stitch markers because we do not need this anymore. So I'm just going to remove both of them. And then for the next side, I'm going to attach my yarn at the bottom right here. No particular reason, just doing it because I want to. You can start at the top if you like, but I'm actually going to start at this corner. And I'm just going to poke my hook through, grab this yarn, pull it through, and then I'll just tie a knot. You can tie 1 or 2. I'll do 2 this time. And then now let's single crochet this border. So I'm just going to insert my hook through that stitch, grabbing the yarn and pulling it through. And then I'm just going to start single crocheting. So it's basically the same thing, just single crocheting the sides up. So I'll finish this side and then I'll show you the corner at the top. Remember, we're just single crocheting to create a nice edge. Okay, so now that if you have, I'm kind of close to the corner, but if you have like these yarn pieces out, you can just crochet over it so we can kind of cover it up. So I'm just going to crochet over that. You just lay it against your project and then, you know, crochet over that so we don't have to cut. If you want to cut it, you can cut it as well, but I just like to crochet over it, and then with this little piece right here, I'll just cut this part off instead of cutting the whole thing. But once you reach the corner, so I'm just going to single crochet into this corner, and then when I get to the top, I don't chain anything. So similar to the other side, you don't want to chain. You're just going to single crochet 2 times into that corner spot to create the curve. And then now we're just going to single crochet on the top. Now this part is going to be easier because you can clearly see these stitches. When I crochet this top, I'm going to stop at this corner right here. I'm not going to single crochet into this, the neck piece, the bottom part of the neck, just the top right here. So I'm going to finish single crocheting this top and I'll be right back. This is me editing, but if you're using the same color for your neck part, you don't have to cut off this yarn right here because you can just start your chain. But I'm going to be using a different color for the neck, so I cut mine off so I can attach my gray yarn. Okay, so now I single crocheted until this corner right here, so I'll take my scissors, cut this off, and then I'll do the same thing with this loop. I'm going to insert the yarn through and just tighten it that way. Okay, so now it's time to attach our yarn. I'll be using my gray. So I'm just going to attach it to this last stitch we did at the top, or that last single crochet we did. I'm going to just attach my gray yarn. I'll tie a knot. I'm going to tie one, and then I'm going to also tie it to this blue yarn 2 times. And then now we're going to create our rib. So for mine, I'm going to chain 6. If you like to make yours shorter or longer, feel free to do that. So I'm going to go into that same stitch where I inserted the yarn to tie the knot. I'm just going to pull through, and I'm going to chain 6. So a chain is yarning over, pulling through. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. Now we're just going to single crochet back down into our chain, but sorry, it's a little bit blurry there. Okay, so you don't want to go into the one that's closest to your hook. You're going into the second one, and you're just going to do a single crochet. So just insert your hook, pull some yarn through. You have your 2 loops on the hook, yarn over, pull through both. So just keep doing that until you make your way back down. I just did 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Then I also want to connect it back down to the part of the top of the neck, or the bottom part right here. So the blue part, I'm just going to go into one of these stitches and just single crochet. When I'm at the bottom here, I'm just going to turn my work. And now I'm going to single crochet into the back loop only to work back up to the top. So you can see right here, that is the first stitch. So let's go into that. That is 1, 2, this is the back loop only, so you just go straight into the middle, out to the back. This is my 3rd, 4th, and 5th. So remember, I started off with a chain of 6, and because I went into the second stitch, I now have 5. So once you reach back up to the top, you chain 1. So let's yarn over a hook, pull through. Then you have to turn your work because we're going back down. So it's a lot of turning, and you're going into the back loop only still. So the chain spot, that chain 1 we did, counts as a stitch. So that was 1, and then you're going into this back here. So into the middle, out to the back. This is 2. Remember, because the chain does count as a stitch. So that was 1, 2. This is 3, 4, and 5. And then we want to single crochet into our blue piece. So I'm going into this spot here. I'm just going to do a single crochet. And after I do a single crochet, I'm going to turn my work. So we're now on the back side. I'm going to show you this about 2 or 3 more times before I finish the rest off camera. But now that I turn my work, I now have to single crochet back into this. So this is going to be the first one here. Go in to the middle, out to the back, doing your single crochet. That was 1, 2, 3, 4, and remember, you single crochet into the chain, and that is 5. Then once you reach the top, you chain 1, you turn your work once again, and now we're back at the front. So you can see the rib is starting to show, so let's do a couple more. So I already chained my 1, so that counts as 1, and then you're going to go into your next stitch and do your single crochet into the back loop only. So this is 2, 3, 4, 5. And once you do your 5, you want to single crochet back into your blue or into whatever color you're using, just at the bottom. And again, once you reach the bottom, you just do a single crochet and then you turn your work. And I'll show you this one more time. So we're going to go crochet back up. So I'm just bringing my yarn back to the front to make it easier. And then you have to single crochet into the back loop only, because again, we're creating a rib. So this is 1, 2, 3, 4, and then you have to crochet into the chain. So this is 5. Actually, I'll show it one more time. So this is the last time. I'm going to, at the top, I'm going to chain 1, turn my work. And now we're going into the back loop only. Remember that chain does count as one, so that was one I just did. And then now we're doing 2, 3, 4, and 5. And then you just single crochet back down into your piece, and then you just turn your work. So now I'm just going to finish this off camera, and then I'll be right back. Hey guys, so I'm back because I just wanted to show you the bottom of this collar right here. So remember how I said in these stitches I kind of just place them anywhere that I see that fits. When you get to the middle, you can see that these are, you know, clear stitches because this is where we did our double crochets. So you can see these stitches are really easy to see, and because I can easily see them, what I usually do is I'll skip a stitch. So I won't go into this one, I'll go into the next one, so it'll be 1 over, and I'll just do my single crochet into that. And then let me take this out to show you. So you can see here, that's where I did the single crochet with the gray, and then I skipped a stitch, and then you can see it there. I skipped it, I inserted it in there, and then I skipped it. So I keep doing that because I feel like if you do it into each one of the stitches, the collar will kind of bunch up, and I just personally don't want it to look like that. So that's why I do skip it, because you know, when you go, so hold on, let me. Okay, so actually I went back up off camera because I've already shown you guys how to do it with this part. So now I'm just going back down, and I just wanted to show you this part on camera again. But when I go back down to do the single crochet into the blue, I'm going to skip this one and go into the next one because I like the spacing of it. But if you want to go into each one of the stitches, that's fine. But I just find that I like the look of this because it kind of lays down flat. So, and then, you know, I would turn my work and then single crochet back up into the back loops only. So yeah, I'm just going to continue doing this until I finish the collar, and then I will come back to show you how I ended off. Okay guys, so I just finished the top part of my collar. So, oops, almost pulled it out. So I have my last back row that I did right here. So what I'm going to do now is just cut off some yarn. Also, you just stop at the top. Like once you get right here, you're not going to like single crochet anything right here because we already did that edging already. So now with your gray or whatever color yarn you have, you're just going to take this loop right here and bring your yarn and put it into the loop, and then just pull on it, and then we can also secure it a bit more. So I'm just going to turn it over to the back side. You can see all of my little pieces there. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to do a little knot, so kind of like what we just did right now with this, but I'm going to go into a different stitch. I kind of want to go into this one just because it's close by. I just go into whatever is close by. I feel like I should have cut my yarn a little bit longer, but that's fine. I'm just going to go in. Sorry, let me show that again. I'm going to put my hook through that loop, and then I'm yarning over the hook, pulling through, but not all the way, just enough until I have a loop. And then I'm going to take the rest of this yarn. I'm going to yarn over and pull it through the loop again, and then just tighten it up like that. Then if you want to do that a couple more times, you can do that. But since I cut it so small, I'm just going to now take my threading needle, and I'm just going to weave it into these bottom stitches right here. So I'm just going to push it through, and I'll just pull straight out. And then now it's just caught in between those stitches there. Now, when you wash this, it's definitely going to come out just a bit, but I'm just hiding it for now. And it's going to be secured because I already have those two little knots. What is this? Okay, so just pushing it through. And then I'm gonna cut off this piece right here. Next, I'm going to do the other little knots I have. So like these pieces right here, you can just tie it a couple more times, but I think I already tied 2 knots right there. So I'm gonna do the same thing where, should I just weave this in? Alright, I'm filming this part a couple days later because I couldn't finish everything in one day, so my mind is kind of all over the place. But so with this blue yarn right here, I'm going to tie it into the blue part of my sweater. So I'm just going to the closest stitch. I'm going to pull that through, but not all the way. We're doing just the same thing. And then I'm going to yarn over my hook and pull it through just for some more security because, well, for me personally, I kind of just throw my crochet stuff into the wash. I'm not really gentle with it. I know some people like hand wash it and, you know, lay it out to dry, but that is not me. So I have to make sure I have it secured tightly. And then I'll do the same thing with the gray. I'm going into the gray stitch and then I'll pull this through. So tiny. Okay, can I do it? I kind of got it through. It's okay, it's gonna be on the inside of the sweater. Losing my voice. Okay, so now I'm going to cut off this excess. We could weave that in, but I kind of just don't feel like it. So I'm just gonna cut mine off, but I was losing my voice again. But yeah, if you want to weave it in a couple more times, you can do that, but I'm just gonna cut off a bit of that excess. And then if you have any other loose ends, you can do the same thing. So like this one right here, I think I'm just gonna cut this one off. This one seems fine, so I'm just gonna cut this one off. But again, if you want to weave it in, please do that. If you want it to be a bit more secured. And then I think that's it for, no, I have one more. So I'll do this to this side as well. If you're ever putting your yarn through the needle and this happens, what I usually do is just fold the yarn in half and then push it this way. And then I'm just going to weave this blue yarn in because I already tied 3 knots. And then I'm just going to push it through this bottom and it's going to be hidden pretty well because these are really close together. But there we go. We have our first panel done. Let me see if I can get a better view of this. All right, guys, so this is the best I can do for the view. I might insert some clips of it, but you will need 2 of these panels. We have our first one done. You will need one for the front and back, of course, so you can go ahead and do that. But when you are ready, I will see you in part 3. And part 3, we're going to be working on the sleeves.